Feeling stuck or unfulfilled? Searching for more meaning in your work and life? Wondering what's next? You're not alone, and you're in the right place. This is Focus on Why, the podcast that turns reflection into action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and each week I dive deep with guests who've chosen to live and work with purpose. Together we explore what drives them, shapes their decisions, and gives their life meaning. Through real stories and honest conversations, you'll discover how to gain clarity, make confident choices, and create a life that truly matters. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we dive in, do you need help creating a more purposeful way of life? Through one-to-one coaching, I can help you clarify your why and create a plan that aligns your values with your work. Book a free 30-minute discovery call with me today. The booking link is in the show notes. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Marina Ibrahim. Welcome, Marina.
Hello, Amy, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So, what is it you're focusing on right now?
Well, many things, in fact. We know we want to focus on one thing at a time, but it's probably also reflecting my own sort of personality. I like this variety of being involved with many different things. And it doesn't mean that I'm not focused, but it gives me the opportunity to also play with many opportunities. Having just come back from a fantastic professional speaker association event in Spain has also given me again another opportunity to also connect internationally, which is literally taking me to the core of my work. I like cultural explorations, working with people, meeting people from different cultural backgrounds. And that brings me to the core of what I'd like to do, focusing on is not only getting inspired by different cultures and connections and conversations and perspectives. It's pretty much about how I can also see myself again and again exploring how I react to different perspectives, keeps me on my toes, and also looking into how I can enrich other people's perspectives when they work, connect, having conversations, and also leading across cultures, communication across cultures, speaking across cultures is all the spectrum, the variety of cultural interventions, cultural connections that I would like to enrich with my line of work. So my focus is probably coming twofolded, one of which is helping businesses and also leaders with enriching their cultural lens, their cultural perspectives, and in literal shortcut saying cultural intelligence. And cultural intelligence is the toolkit, the attitude, the knowledge, but also the strategy and also the actions that you're taking when you are stepping onto an international and multicultural stage or environment. I call cultural intelligence being emotional intelligence on steroids. We all know about intellectual intelligence, IQ, we know about emotional intelligence, EQ, but cultural intelligence, CQ, is literally taking emotional intelligence into the cultural arena. When you work with clients from international clients, having an international workforce, even as a leader, you always have to be aware that there are cultural different perspectives there and different ways of interpreting what you're saying, but also constantly challenges around how you communicate in the best way that you make other people around you feel included, but also understood and listened and heard.
It's so funny. I was just thinking, what is it that Marina has just shared that I will ask her a question around the differences in terms of, is there a commonality? Is there something that all of this shared? And then when you just wrapped up, then you kind of answered that question in terms of communicating in a way that you're feeling included, understood, listened, and heard. So is that the commonality? Is that the common goal to achieve in this space?
I think that could well be the focus of every cultural intervention. You know, intervention is like, how do you trade internationally? How do you communicate internationally? That means that doesn't necessarily mean you have to speak all those languages. But the underlying principles that come in when you act and react, when you speak and lead, everything that comes with it means there are some certain rules, and they all focus on, whilst we're talking about focus on why, how you build trust fast. So whenever you are meeting a new person from a different cultural background, we know we get carried away with biases. It's a natural thing. It's an instinct. We want to make sure that we feel safe and that we can trust that person, trust that situation. But if we won't be able to do that in a profound way, to build trust with the intention of building trust, because we want to build relationships, because we want to lead a team, we want to have that team trusting us, how can you then be successful if you haven't got that trust built in the first place? And same applies when you are trading internationally as an organization who wants to sell their products and expand into international markets. You have to also build trust quickly so that your return on investment pays out as you planned it to be. So if you're not culturally aware, you will fail. Simply as that.
Your return on investment, Marina, what do you get about working in this area?
This is a very good question. My return on investment is the smiles, the aha moments, the connectivity that I gain every time I step into a coaching situation, a training room, conversations with potential clients, with existing clients about the very fact that they're struggling with all those challenges that come when they are working and leading and trading internationally. So they will experience they're not getting heard, they're not getting respected, they're not familiar with a new culture that they are stepping into, let's say, through a new assignment. I have in my line of work supported lots of leaders, for example, who have been allocated to a new assignment, a new country, a new team, a new environment, and they need to make their assignment work fast in terms of they have to hit the ground running with their cultural knowledge so that they can also start performing, because that's what is expected from their line managers, from their teams, from their department, from their organization. And often culture gets in their way. Not only that they have to relocate, with the relocation comes, the actual move from one country to another, often connected with taking their family with them. And then that cultural adjustment not only starts with, let's say, having to learn a new language, it's also familiarizing yourself with the culture at your workplace. And that is the biggest challenge. If you're open enough to and willing to learn and also engage a cultural consultant like me, you're much better prepared for what could go wrong and also much better prepared to make it successful. So for me, it's important to see that I am actually adding value to those international assignments and international expansions, market growth, for business growth for organizations who want to work and also work already internationally, whether they have a team from different cultural backgrounds or leaders. And yeah, that's the sort of field I play with. And in fact, it reflects my own journey. That's one of the key things that actually drove me to being working now in this field, having been brought up between two cultures, not knowing that consciously, of course. When you grow up as a daughter of an Egyptian father and a German mother, you don't necessarily know that consciously then. But there were moments in my life where I can literally pinpoint that actually made me Marina, the Marina who I am today. And it took me some very emotional moments in my life that I'm very proud of, that I don't want to miss. Yes, I've been brought up in Germany mainly, but I also lived as a child with my mother in Egypt, because there's an option on the cards that we could possibly also relocate to Egypt and live there. So my father has literally given my mother and me the option to decide whether we want to do that. And for that comes that we had a year's trial, so to speak, to find out if that would work. We decided to go back to Germany, but this intense experience, I was 4 or 5 years old, was something that I'm still carrying with me today. It's a very, very intense feeling of feeling culturally connected to Egypt. And of course, I have family and friends there, and whenever we went to see them, it was a very intense time every time we went to visit. But it also gave me the sort of question, where do I actually belong? And that is a question that came up. Of course, every teenager would probably start asking that question. And I felt that question of, am I too Egyptian for the Germans or too German for the Egyptians? I felt that at some point, but I couldn't really answer the question. So I needed to explore this. So it was my exploratory journey of how can I make this work? How can I make the culture work for me? Not that I had this conscious knowledge about it then, but I felt there was something missing. There was something that I need to find an answer for. And so I experimented. I literally traveled to Egypt on my own, which is quite unusual for a woman, a young woman who was always used to go and visit Egypt with family. And it's a very protective way of traveling, of course. But when you travel on your own as a woman in an Islamic country, I'm not Islamic. I have a Coptic Christian father, which makes it there's another layer of cultural complexity there. The reason I'm mentioning this is when you as a woman travel alone in an Islamic country, there is that stereotypical and also value-based behavior and expectations. You shouldn't be in this area. You shouldn't be in public spaces because there's that classical separation, segregation between women are looking after family and the home environment, whereas the men literally occupying the public space. And when you as a woman enter the public space without any male companion, whether it is family, a cousin or a brother, or the father, then you are going to be perceived as someone who you don't really want to be associated with. And that's quite a challenging undertaking. So if you want to really make it work for you, and in this case, I wanted to find my own quest, where do I actually belong? Could I consciously decide Egypt and the Egyptian culture as my home, as my place of belonging? I felt I liked the experiences on one hand because it is Egyptian people are very, very warm people. We're very warm-hearted and very funny, and I just have a big connection with them. But on the other hand, having been brought up with German and Western values, there was that clash that has given me quite simply the answer: it's not for me. I love this country, I love the people, I love to visit, but I couldn't in those days make a conscious decision to say, yes, this is the place I want to be. This is the place I belong. So it is an important question that I found an answer to. And it didn't answer the question in full because I was still on the search of another culture that could possibly host a German Egyptian who doesn't feel home in neither Germany nor Egypt. So this is an interesting concept because I also teach and create awareness for that as well. What is the best culture you can belong to? Is it something that you need to seek, or is that something you can also create? For me, I also went to France to live there for some months to find out is maybe the French culture suitable for me because I love the French language. I studied French at school. And again, an experiment which didn't really resonate with me. And later on, I was happy enough to pursue a career in marketing and media and landed a job in Germany with EMI, which is a British multinational publishing company, music publishing company. And that was then, well, already quite an international setting where English was working language, as well as having subsidiaries and EMI branches all over the world. It was already quite an international and cross-cultural environment. But again, not consciously knowing that. But I liked the English-speaking environment. I really enjoyed that line of work, and it was probably starting to grow my passion, my aim to wanting to work internationally. And when I was made redundant, that was in 2001, I used that opportunity for me to seek for an international assignment, to work for an international environment. And then with that comes a fantastic opportunity, having had the opportunity to attend a course international project management combined with cross-cultural management. And that was where I had a very, very deep aha moment, a very, very deep insight. Not only about international project management, yes, you can learn the tools and the techniques and everything that comes with it to run international projects, but the cross-cultural management, that was really insightful, because for the very first time, it clicked with me. An insight about how time can be perceived differently across different cultures. And one of the moments was that we learned about an African culture perceiving time as space, as rooms. And I thought, what? How is that possible? And with that came, yes, because rooms are spaces where you get together with family, with a group of people. And when you memorize, oh yes, that event, whether it was a wedding or a birthday, where we all got together, that is the moment in time, the snapshot of memory that you can remember so well. So, and it actually led to the whole concept of me, how I learned, although not consciously, but I experienced how the Egyptian time is so different from the German time. We often, as German family, visiting our family in Egypt, had those clashing moments that the Egyptian time is so flexible, and yes, so flexible that they can allow themselves to be 2 hours late and really challenging our punctuality and our way of saying, hey, you're late. That very concept of lateness is like an insult to cultures such as the Egyptian, African cultures in particular, who have a very flexible concept of time. That means they put all the emphasis on time as being spending time together with the people that matter. Whereas we have a time concept in the Western, particularly in Germany, where time is money and time is has to be respected. It's actually a trust building exercise. If you're late, you already destroy trust, or haven't even been able to build trust with German representatives of in that respect. So in the business context, particularly if you are late for a meeting, you really have to work hard to actually regain that trust. So, and that in itself was such an aha moment that really started to get me going in terms of being more curious. What's all this? And that has actually helped me to discover cultural frameworks. Of course, one of the pioneers is Dr. Gerhard Hofstede, the cultural pioneer, together with others who I don't want to be listing now here, because I think there's a different context for that in my training that I offer. But the very fact that culture has been studied in the context of how can we in a business world who really rely on building trust quickly, making unconscious concepts, values, concepts of time, communication styles, leadership styles, definition, how we do make decisions, and so on and so forth. That all is kind of hidden to us if we're not really careful, or if you're not even curious, or even don't even care to explore. And businesses rely so much on this. You have to really go into exploring that with an open mind. And those pioneers who I mentioned, Francis Tom Bernasco belongs to that, as well as Erin Meyer. There are lots of books and studies available that help us to make a very structured approach to cultural dimensions. They're called cultural dimensions. It's literally a structured approach to compare cultures, positioning yourself where you are with your cultural preferences, whether it's through your own cultural upbringing or through your adaptation process. Once you know where you are and you can compare yourself to another culture, that's where you can start identifying the gaps. But also that's where the work will start to happen when you want to apply your cultural adaptability, cultural agility, I call it, being willing to acknowledge the otherness, wanting to connect with them, for the purpose of building relationship, trustful relationships, so that you can also get your job done, whether it's leading high performance teams or being successful in any trade relationships or just being successful in any communication with people from different cultural backgrounds.
What I'm hearing here, Marina, is that everything that you experienced growing up through to being a young adult on your quest to understand where do I belong has led you into directly working in the space of ensuring that people are understood, that they are not having that concern around belonging, inclusion, being included, being understood, but this trust and this respect here, and allaying the myths that are surrounded by perceived understanding. So, for example, you use the example of German time being very punctual and Egyptian time being very flexible. But essentially, what that was alluding to at the heart of it is that the Egyptians are very much in the moment. They stay where they are with the people they're with because they don't see too far into the future. They are just being very present with who they are now. Whereas the German understanding of time is like they're always aware of what's next, right? Is that right?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so. I mean, again, I mean, you can literally draw, and this is probably what many people say when they ask me, where are you actually from? You know, I find that not a very straightforward answer to or question to answer, because I will always have to elaborate to say I am Egyptian German. Oh, well, that's an interesting combination. When people say that, you don't really know, is that curiosity? Is it something like that they already have a hunch that these two cultures couldn't be more extreme in their difference? I just go for the latter one, because I think it's like they probably get an idea that those two cultures are very, very different. The Germans, yes, they are very risk averse. One of their key values is everything is around safety. And they're also, I mean, I don't want to sound as if I was stereotyping the Germans. We know this is a cultural expectation. This is what is expected, how you should behave when you want to build trust with Germans. That doesn't mean that, you know, describing one German means I describe all Germans. We know that. So I just wanted to make that clear. But it is expected as a trust building exercise. If you want to build trust with the Germans, you have to understand what drives their behavior. And one of the key behaviors is safety. The key values is safety. And with that comes, you know, planning, having a high respect for authority, for research and development, doctor titles and professors, and the addressing of Dr. Amy Rowlingson would be, you know, an absolute must if you were interacting with people in certain industries. It's still absolute etiquette to address people that way. And with that comes also their way of expressing formality, in terms of we have two ways of addressing in an informal way and a formal way. The formal way is the Z, as in respectful distance, not kind of too familiar, whereas the do is a more informal way. And they often separate that in their workplace because they want to make sure, for the value of safety, not to dilute objectivity and research and evidential conversations with relationship that can actually be, may as well get in the way. Oh, I want to do a friend or my colleague a favor, therefore I would step away from some of those rules and regulations. And that is part of that setting of the German value map. When you go to the Egyptians, they tend to be, everything is faith-based. So yes, you're right, they're very much in the here and now, and they would probably find it, having another meeting lined up, which is in the future, meaning you're actually already insulting this very moment that we're spending here with you. How dare you already thinking about something else, not being here with us and focusing on what we're experiencing here right now. Absolutely. It's a very relationship oriented culture, where you could say the Germans tend to be more task oriented. And therefore you have, one of the key decisive criteria when it comes to cultural dimensions. Dimension is literally, as soon as you step into an international and multicultural setting, there is no right or wrong. There is only that dimension and the other dimension, and they often sit on this sort of same scale, whether it's task orientation or relationship orientation, as how to build trust.
So those questions, where do I belong? And when someone asks you, where are you from? Have you got an answer from a perspective of, the answer?
That's a very good question. No, I haven't. It I always feel like there is no straight answer to say I'm German, I'm Egyptian, I'm British. And I think as soon as you are, depending on in which context this question is going to be asked, I'd like to somehow give people the opportunity to learn a little bit more about cultural intelligence or cultural complexity, because in a very multicultural world we live in nowadays, we will experience more and more people from different mixed cultural backgrounds, as well as people who have experienced working in different countries and interacting with different cultures. There is no one way or one size fits all approach answer anymore. I think this is very important because I like to use every opportunity to actually tell people, look, it's not straightforward. I can say I'm from Shropshire because that's where I live at the moment. And people feel irritated when I've been asked, where are you from? Of course, they would say, you're not from Shropshire, you're not from here, you have an accent. And there we go. We are getting into a conversation here. Yeah.
And again, it's a common question to ask to see if there is a kind of connection. So when someone says, where are you from? There's likely to be something that from that area that you can expand on and find some kind of similarity or an understanding. So it's a simple question, a geographical question in terms of, oh yes, I've been there once, or I've got a friend there or something. So it is a form of question, but it has a different layer to it when they ask that for you. Your name as well, the actual origins of each of your names. Marina being of the sea, right? And Ibrahim being father of many nations, a multitude. Even your name gives you the depth of this space travel, not necessarily having a singular base.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, we know that names can give you a lot of indication of where you belong or want to belong. It gives you even sometimes a mission for your life. And we know there are cultures out there who have a name culture that gives, or let's say, cultures have a culture about names that gives names different meanings and meanings different names. And often people are even named after the rock or the sea or some meanings. Like I just met a beautiful woman on this conference that I went to this weekend, and her name is Noor, and Noor means light in Arabic. And she has really had that light and that connection where I felt the energy that she carried was just beautiful. And I still feel goosebumps when I think of her and her name, how suitable it was.
Oh, before we go to another question, goosebumps, tap into the tingle. What was it that you elicited goosebumps for you?
It was a connection.
Yeah, there we go. So I have an exercise, which is when you experience goosebumps, to tap into the origin of what has created them. We can't lie here.
Mm-hmm.
The goosebumps just come, and it is because of something that deeply matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
So at the heart of it, that connection
Mm.
of when you felt it in that moment was so important to you.
It was, yes. Yes, I mean, it has a lot to do with listening out, and also I mean, in this case, it was probably also whether it was coincidental or not. I just knew she has changed her name. There was a Spanish name. I can't remember exactly what it was, Nureg or something. Never mind. But she has consciously changed it to Nur, which is from Spanish Nureg or Nura to Nur. And for me, because I knew the Arabic word of light, that I connected with her and told her, did you know that this is the name for light? And she was immediately felt understood and heard. And that was the moment where the energy was kind of, flowing.
I love it. I love it. And this is what's so important. I mean, we have this phrase called nominative determinism, which is where your surname or your name is seems coincidental to the career that someone is in, but it actually tends to be, I would say, it has subconsciously led them there. You know, it is a case, but you've got people like Usain Bolt. I mean, he's the fastest person.
Yes,
Yeah, right. And but there it is really interesting because you've also have historically, if you were a cooper or a blacksmith or whatever, or a butcher, all these names became
yes,
surnames. So that's very different.
yes.
So name is important in terms of this. But I wanted just to sort of go back to, you've mentioned playing a couple of times, play with opportunities right at the beginning, and also the playing in the field in terms of just experimenting and playing. Is that linked to fun?
Yes, yes, on one hand, it's also linked to curiosity, because I think I probably want to create a link back to the quest that I was searching for my own culture, the culture of belonging. And if you've been brought up between two cultures, may as well a third one could help you to settle. And that's, I think, that happened when I decided to pursue my career in the UK, because I felt, in fact, I'm actually I'm intending to write a book about this because it will be my personal journey. But I'd like to also underpin that with, of course, the cultural research and concepts that, yeah, that are behind cultural dimensions and understanding, the concept of culture. I feel that on the spectrum, if we were comparing the German with the Egyptian culture, I would say the British sits just kind of nicely in the middle. And in some ways, I felt that is actually my balanced sort of cultural sweet spot, so to speak, that made me make it work for me to find my place, because it's a lot of work involved, as you can imagine. Everyone, every expat and people who are on international assignments have to go through the notions of learning the language, but also learning the culture, and really make the journey of where can I belong? How can I make this happen? How can I belong? How can I be successful? And that is actually also the journey that I have been pursuing since I moved to the UK about, now 23 years, to really make it work. And I feel also, when we come to playfulness, I think it's important for me to acknowledge that it takes some playfulness, trying things out, and being nurtured and supported and even encouraged to play and try things out. And that's what I felt I could do here with the British values, because the British values are all about trying things out and being encouraged for this. I know that because I've studied it as well as having experienced it. And for interesting enough, because when we focus on why me, or why Germany, or why Egypt, or why the UK, I can ask all these questions. But I think if I was asking, could I have done what I've achieved in the UK in Germany? I would say no. And could I have done the same in Egypt? I would again say no. And that has probably something to do that I allowed myself being playful, trying things out, making mistakes, but feeling I have had a place where I can try this out and have also been successful with it.
And you said, is it a case of seeking or creating? And I talk about how you create it from within. and that it's not to be found externally. So, yes, while an environment has set you up with the conditions and the opportunities to play and experiment, it still comes from within, this sense of belonging that you have to, I believe, you have to feel comfortable with you first.
Yes, 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 yes. And it's, yeah, it's a it's a challenging path when you think it all comes from within. But you also have to have your environment to actually see that there is support, that there is willingness to encourage you or feeling encouraged. There are certainly environments where you can't do that with that ease. And therefore, I think you can, to a certain extent, you can choose to make it easier for you, and you can choose to make it difficult for you. And again, that is also down to how conscious are you about your environment, about your own cultural preferences, for example, your own values, and also how much are you willing and prepared to challenge what is around you in order to make it work for you.
And it's so interesting. You mentioned how France wasn't right for you. I moved in July last year, and it was a case of 15 minutes up the road, an entirely different environment now that I'm living in. And so it could be, you can say the whole country is not right for you, but even just a change of up the road makes a massive difference
You're right.
because of I'm now valuing different elements of what is important, and we do evolve, we do change. What served me in my 20s and 30s and 40s, now I'm in my 50s, I want something different.
Absolutely, yes. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we know that culture is multidimensional as well. You know, we have national cultures, but we also have geographical, regional cultures. We have even within organizations, we have cultures, and we have departmental cultures. You know, the marketing department has a different culture than the financial department, and so on and so forth. Culture is multi-layered. And you're absolutely right. It could have been just up the street that I needed to move, and not necessarily to the UK. But it wasn't in those days. I mean, you know how things are. Sometimes you just need to do bold decisions or just feel attracted by the adventure of going into a different country. It has something to do with traveling and experiencing different languages. I love traveling anyway, and it was probably also then one of the key sort of discoveries or playfulness to learn different languages. Whenever I traveled to Greek a lot, Greece a lot. I learned Greek, I learned French, Italian. I have a phrase in many languages of the countries I'm visiting, so that I can have that connection with them. I keep saying, if you learn some phrases, it not only opens the doors, it opens the hearts. You have just got a complete different connection with people. And that in itself makes all the difference, because if you demonstrate you're willing to travel on their path, you're willing to listen, you're willing to learn, to be open, to be curious. And that in itself is just by learning some phrases, whether it's, hello, thank you, and being curious to continue that conversation.
Marina, we could speak about this for ages, and it has been a really beautiful conversation. And oh my goodness, we could speak forever because this is such a huge topic, and I can see how there is so much richness in it and variety for you to have your focus pulled in different directions. And at the heart of what it is that you are focused on is about connection. It's about touching other people's hearts. And what a fabulous space to be working in. How would someone best connect with you?
Mm. Well, I have my website. I call it Globility Insights. And that is a play on words, a word that I created about the line of work I have been doing for over 12 years now. Global mobility is literally the sort of area It's a very technical area which literally allows multinational companies to place their talents into different projects and countries and cultures. And for that, they have to be globally mobile, but also globally agile. And that's where I created globability, as in global agile or global agility, global adaptability. That's the sort of play on word I'm using. So my website is called globalityinsights.com, with a hyphen, globability-insights.com. And of course, I'm also on LinkedIn, and I deliver coaching training as well for successful leaders who already are in an international environment, multicultural environment, and often challenged with, getting heard or getting that right respect, because they may as well still need to sharpen their self-awareness, but also the awareness of others around them, how cultural intelligence can enrich them rather than restrict them in their way, how they interact, often overlooked by many organizations because they just think they can take things for granted and often miss out the opportunity of turning their culture clash into culture cash. This is sort of my strapline, because I think lots of team leaders and teams and organizations are missing out on the opportunity of leveraging cultural differences as an opportunity to be more creative and also innovative, and give people around them the feeling of belonging and being heard, and actively encouraging to contribute.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure that those links are in the show notes so that you can connect with Marina and take the conversation from here. Marina, thank you so much for coming on Focus on Why. Do you have some final words, please, for the listener?
Well, I would like to say, in the challenging world we're living today, where we're experiencing lots of global events that are making us sad, and also a place where cultural diversity is not always respected, I would like to say there are no strangers, only friends you have not met yet, with hand to stretch out to connections and building trust. Because in the end, we are all on this planet together, and we can only serve and support each other by solving problems together. And for that to be able, you have to be culturally aware, self-aware, but also willing to connect and build trust with others. That is my focus on why.
That's a wrap for today, but the journey doesn't end here. Share your takeaways, leave a review, or post your insights. Your voice helps others discover the value of these stories. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for ways to work with me. Get a copy of my book, or to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter packed with clarity and inspiration. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.